Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Four Dads Podcast. Today, joining Don Julio and myself, we have Lou Stagner, data lead for Arccos Golf, assistant coach, Princeton Golf, men's golf, and has his own Hack It Out podcast, which I'm sure a lot of people, like I've seen, have loved that podcast. I've checked out a few of them. Really, really good deep dives into golf and data and information and stats and things like that. Again, we're really excited to have him here. Honestly, didn't expect anything like this to get set up as quickly as it did, but we're extremely grateful to have him on the podcast here today. To get started, Lou, for those who might not know you, which there probably are some people, tell us a little bit about you. Obviously, you're a Princeton golf coach, you're data lead at Arccos Golf, and things like that.
Yeah, I'm just, well, first, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the invite. I always love to talk golf. So it's always a good time to chat about that. So I've been, a golfer for 3 decades now, and a golf nut just like you guys. So passionate about the game, been playing forever. And I started to dabble around in golf stats only like 4 or 5 years ago. And didn't expect it to go anywhere. So I'm just as surprised as many people would be in this situation. I didn't intend it to go anywhere. I literally created a golf blog on analytics to kill some time in the winter, and figured that I would do it each winter, and during the summer I would be able to go out and play golf and not have time for the blog. And then it just kind of took off in some crazy directions and started to work with players, and then just kind of spiraled into where we are now. And it's been pretty cool. It's been a fun ride.
That's awesome. I mean, I know just data and analytics and things like that, I feel like are starting to take off in really every sport. Football, you see it with their fourth down, decisions on if they should go for it, if it's green light or red light. Baseball, I feel like has always been stats driven. That's just
Sure.
really that's really baseball. You're known by your batting average. You're known by, ERA. And now there's even more stats that come out with that. But golf, I feel like it's, how new do you think it's I feel like it's been taken off over the last few years, with specific stats, but I mean, I'm sure you have more on that.
Yeah. Golf is, I don't want to say it's late to the party. It's later to the party. Mm-hmm. And there's been a huge uptick over the last few years in numbers in golf and how people are using them, not only at the professional level, but at the amateur level as well. Mm-hmm. And I think we owe all of this to Mark Brody, who invented strokes gained. And he invented that back in the mid 2000s, roughly. And it was used in, I believe 2011 was the first year they used it on the PGA Tour. And they initially used it only for putting. And then they expanded it to other parts of the game. And it's continued to grow since then. So his book that he wrote, Every Shot Counts, was, I think, a major inflection point with people, understanding more about advanced, I'll call it advanced analytics, moving beyond typical things that most people, were tracking, and some are still tracking,
right.
Greens in regulation, fairways, right. putts per round, things like that. So this really shifted people in a different way of thinking and understanding and measuring performance. And it continues to ramp up. So there's more players every day, both professional and amateur, that are really trying to leverage data to guide what they work on and help them to get better.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, like as a coach at Princeton, are you using a lot of these stats to help out with some of the players, or are you letting them come to you? Do you have like a set stats that you're or information that you're trying to give them? And how much have you seen that affect their play in a positive, I doubt negative, but I mean, in a positive way?
Yeah, I think, stats will impact everybody and can make everybody better. And on the team, we use Arccos, okay. And all the players have Arccos on their clubs, and we track their stats that way. And as you can imagine, as somebody that has access to the raw data directly, I get to do some specialized things with the data. That's pretty cool. Right. Arccos tracks a lot of information, and I get to leverage all of that for what I'm doing with them. And we just got started leveraging that. Our season just began, and we've only had one tournament so far here in the spring season, and we have a few more coming up here. And we're starting to collect data not only in our tournament rounds, but in our qualifying rounds and all of our practice rounds. And we're going to leverage that to help every player get better. And data is something that, you don't have to be an elite Division I player to benefit from data. You don't have to be a PGA Tour player to benefit from data. A 20 handicap, a 25 handicap, a beginner can benefit from understanding some of these numbers. Especially, as you get into looking at strokes gained using an app like Arccos, which is really going to give you good information on each part of your game, where there's 4 parts: off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. You're going to be able to see how you are doing in each one of those categories and where your weaknesses are. And that's really important, because not every 10 handicap or 15 handicap is exactly the same. They're very, very different. And so you can have, and I've given this example before, but it's worth, repeating. You can have 3 10 handicaps standing on a tee box. Let's say all 3 of us are 10 handicaps. We get to the first tee and we say, what's your handicap? I'm a 10, I'm a 10, I'm a 10. All right, cool. No strokes today. We're playing straight up. And let's say that, John is the average putter for 10 handicaps. He putts like the typical 10 handicap. And let's say Julio is in the top 5% of putters for 10 handicaps. He would putt like the typical scratch player, being that good as a 10.
Right.
And let's say I was in the bottom 5% putters. I would be putting about like the typical 20 index player. So even though Julio and I are both 10 handicaps, he putts like a scratch, I putt like a 20. There's about a little bit over 5 shots difference in skill level between those two.
Oh, wow.
So even though we're 10 handicaps, we differ by 5 shots in putting. He's a great putter. I'm a horrible putter. So generically, if I was trying to help a 10 handicap and I would want them to get better, generically, I'd be saying you probably need to work on your ball striking a bit. Ball striking is really important, and it's going to be the biggest differentiator between you and a scratch player, if let's say that's where you want to get to. But in this example, I would not be telling myself to work on ball striking. I would be having someone like me, who's a horrific putter, as a 10 handicap, start on putting, because there's some extremely low-hanging fruit there. And with focused effort on my putting, I would be able to very quickly go from being horrific at putting to being an average putter or slightly above average putter, which could easily shave 2 to 4 strokes off of my game just by focusing. And that's why it's important to know your stats. Not everybody's the same. We all have our own unique blueprint with how we play. So measuring and knowing and understanding is extremely important. And that's what we're doing with the players at Princeton, is measuring, understanding, helping to design practice plans and strategies around how they can use and leverage this data to make their games better or their performance in tournaments better.
Right. And so
I think that information is so imperative. I mean, I play tons of tournaments, tons of skins games, weekly. And I have a friend in particular where he's an 8, but he and I'll give him, 2 or 3 strokes aside. But even on the best of holes where he doesn't get a stroke, we're even, because the guy putts like there's no tomorrow. He just drains putts. But where I struggle in my game, predominantly is primarily my second shot in. I have no problem off the tee box. I'll get it out there where I have a wedge shot. I'll have, maybe a smooth choke down pitching wedge, but I end up either getting too handsy, decel, come up short, have to, play with have to make a tougher shot going in. But then when I, anything I think within like 8 feet for me, it's probably I got a pretty good stats there as far as like making them. Anything outside of that is looking more like a 2-putt. But if I get myself in trouble by missing a green, it gets pretty bad.
This is where I'm going to jump in and I'm going to pick on you a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's going to sound like I'm picking on you a little bit, but I'm not. So when I ask players, when I get together and I start working with a player, I would be asking them, what's your strokes gained putting? What's your strokes gained off the tee? What's your strokes gained on putts inside of 10 feet? What about outside of 30 feet? And those are answers that you don't have to have them memorized, but you should be able to get to them because they're extremely, extremely important to know. Yeah. And tracking them removes any bias that we might have about how we think we are at that skill. And we are not very good at estimating our skill at all of these different things that we do. And here's a great example. And I've told this a few times before, and I always forget who told me this. But Justin Rose, when he started working with Sean Foley, Justin Rose said to Sean Foley, I'm a horrible wedge player. Got to work on my wedge play. I stink. If my wedges get better, like this is the key to me being the best ever. And Sean Foley looked at his strokes gained data from his wedge play, and he was like the second or third best wedge player on the PGA Tour. And last time I checked, PGA Tour, pretty much these are the best players on the planet. He was like number 2 or 3 with wedge play on the PGA Tour, which are the best players on the planet. And he thought he was bad at wedge play. And that's because I don't know the exact reason, but I'm guessing, like all of us, he probably hit a loose wedge shot at a really key time, and he just went, oh, I'm a horrible wedge player. And then maybe did it again at some other point in time and then just started to feed that incorrect self-belief that I'm a bad wedge player. And so actually knowing and tracking, and I don't want this to sound like a commercial, but I don't care if you track it on the back of a napkin. I really don't. I'd love if you picked Arccos, but you have to know these numbers. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're just guessing. And when you're just guessing, you're not going to be able to focus your efforts on where they really need to be for you to get better. So if that sounded like I'm picking on you, I might be a little bit, but trust me, knowing this stuff will make you a lot better, and you'll be able to take that dude's money, which is what I'm here. That's what I'm mainly here for, is to help you win more money.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I really haven't put a lot of effort into like where I am gaining strokes, where I am losing strokes. Yeah. I guess you could essentially just call it like I just kind of take it as it comes for the most part. Like, I kind of just live in the moment of each shot. I have what me and John are familiar with, which you hear a lot in baseball, which is flush it type of mentality where, hey, it happened. Like you got this much time between when you get there to, dwell on it and then just forget it. Once you get to the next shot, set up and do your thing. But it's funny now that you're talking about it. I know you didn't want it to be like an infomercial, but I'm now looking at Arccos right now. I'm like, do I want to pull the trigger on this? Should I do it?
Well, so here's what I would tell you is I want you to play that way. When you're out there playing, yes, play that way. I don't want you to be, not everybody is like me. So I'm very numbers focused, and I can be very involved in the numbers, if that makes sense, while I'm out there. And that doesn't bother me. Prior to any of this technology existing, I would track everything that I did shot by shot in my scorecard. I had a system, not similar, but like what Matt Fitzpatrick, words. Yeah. Cut that part out so they don't think I'm a dummy. So like what Fitzpatrick does. Yeah, and I have no problem doing that. Not everybody is like that. So I want you to continue to play that way. Don't get lost in the numbers out there, but where you're going to use them is afterwards. Yeah. And afterwards, you're going to be able to say, how did my game perform? Am I really good off the tee? I think I'm a great driver of the golf ball. Wait a minute. I'm losing, 2 strokes per round versus, an 8 handicap. Let's say you're benchmarking yourself against an 8. I'm losing 2 strokes a round with my driver against an 8 handicap. maybe I'm not all that great off the tee. I thought I was, but maybe I'm not. And this could be information that not only you use to help define where you focus your practice efforts, because we all have, new father, limited time, job, like all those things. You can't practice 10 hours a day. So you have to be a ninja about how you practice and what you're working on. And it's also great information you can give to your coach as well. So you can walk into your coach if you have a swing coach. If you don't, I would encourage you to find one. I think they're something that everybody should have and spend some time with, and then almost kind of put on retainer for maintenance once you get to a certain point. That's great information for your coach to walk in and say, here's how I'm performing. If you ask any coach or teacher out there, when a student comes to them for a lesson, they're all going to tell you, every student pretty much says, I want to be more consistent. And teachers will laugh about that because that's pretty much what they hear 99% of the time. I want you to be able to walk in and say, here's how I'm performing. Like, here's what my strokes gained looks like on a per club basis or by distance. Same thing with putting. That's valuable information you can use to get better.
Man, I mean, I think that's a good point. I feel like, numbers don't lie, and statistics, they don't lie. And the mind is such a powerful thing. And I feel like, at least when I was playing baseball, you always remember like the bad calls, the things that go against you more than, or the losses. You remember the losses more than you do the wins. Because, like they're going to sting more. And that might've been something that potentially, like you mentioned with Justin Rose, that was in his mind. He might've had like 15 or like 14 good wedge shots in a round, but he only remembers the 2 bad ones that put him within 30 feet or 40 feet to make a difficult putt. Right. And that just totally threw off the rest of his game, even though he was a lot better than he is. And it's definitely a good, probably like benchmark to just see like, oh, wow, like you said, maybe I'm not as good off the tee. Maybe I'm not as good off the wedges. But when you were talking about, let's say, I know for the example that you use, you were like the bottom 5% of putters. And you said like you usually for like a 10 handicap, you say work on your iron striking and things like that. Would you say wedge play for a bad putter would benefit them more than just working on putting specifically? Because the closer, hypothetically you get to the hole, the easier the putt. Or would you still just say, or what would your way of coaching be in one of those situations with a bad putter, for example?
Yeah, well, generically, I'm going to tell pretty much all amateurs, you need to be better ball strikers. You need to improve your ball striking. If your goal is to become an elite amateur, whatever that might be for amateur players, let's say you want to be scratch or you want to be a +2, you need to be a really good ball striker. There's no way around that. But if you're 15 and you're trying to get down to a 5, or you're 12 trying to get down to a 5, which is very common. There's a lot of people that are in that 10 to 15 range that are serious about the game and want to get better. You need to know what you're good at and what you're bad at. So you can focus everybody's different. Now, generically, I can tell you be a better ball striker, but my example, the hypothetical that I made up where I'm a bottom 5% putter, in that, without knowing anything else, I'm probably going to be hitting my irons like a 5 or a 6 index, 6.5 index, something like that. So I'm going to be hitting my irons pretty good. And Julio would have been hitting his irons probably like a 13 or a 14. So him spending time on irons would be a lot more important than me spending time on irons.
Gotcha.
So, given unlimited time and resources, you have lots of options, but all of us don't have unlimited time and unlimited resources.
Oh, man.
So we have to be very focused on how we spend our practice time and what we're going to work on. And knowing your numbers, which are going to be different than my numbers, really helps to allow you to put together a very ninja-like plan to help you get better, which is why when people focus on this, they see improvements, because it's now black and white. It's not, I'm a really good putter inside of 8 feet. Maybe you're not. And that's just because it's very hard for us to aggregate enough of that information and be accurate about it. You
Right.
can say, I think I'm pretty good, or I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm pretty bad. And unless you have the numbers, you're probably wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, no, that's a good point. I think I don't know if you've had enough time since the tournament ended yesterday, but did you see any specific? And I don't even know if you do this, but since you are a numbers guy,
Yeah.
did you see any stats and things like that that kind of surprised you with Scotty Scheffler's win yesterday at the Players Championship?
Yeah, I haven't taken a look at any of that.
Okay.
So normally I am looking at those things. I just haven't had an opportunity to look and dissect his performance yet. I unfortunately wasn't even able to watch much this past weekend.
Same.
Friday. And I just had a lot of things going on. It was just a bad weekend, which is not typical for me. Typically, events like this, I am making sure to carve time out. But unfortunately, the stars did not align this weekend for me, unfortunately.
It happens.
Yeah. I will say I definitely put the time to watching it this weekend just because John was very excited to have you here on the call, and being that you're a numbers guy, I wanted to make sure that I had some numbers right, and just to kind of speak about. But I will say from just a non-numbers perspective, like Scotty really turned it on. In the back nine. I mean, he was, I think, going into number 8, he was like 13 under in total, but then the back he just tore it up. I mean, he just looked like he was in his own world. It just looked like it was just him against the course, and it was really, really neat to see, and to see him just kind of walk away. The one guy that I was disappointed to see kind of fall off was Victor Hovland, as well as who else was up there? Oh my God!
I know Morikawa was for a little bit.
Morikawa.
He was up there for a little bit.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him kind of close one out. He had the momentum going. It was just let a few shots get away from him. But also Hovland did the same thing too. It was just tough.
Yeah, Julio texted me, I think, on Saturday. He goes, "What happened to Hovland?" And I'm like, "Did something happen to him? I don't know. I'm not watching." And he's like, "Oh, he was in the lead. Now he dropped 4 or 5 shots. He had I think a double or a triple, and it was just couldn't recover enough." But I mean, so just on a personal level, how often do you play? Have you played your whole life? Did you play in high school, college, or anything like that? Or do your kids play?
So I've been playing seriously for about 30 years now. I started before that when I was young, and I didn't play all that much as a teenager. I started playing the game left-handed, and played lefty, and then tore my ACL in my right knee. And it made it really challenging to kind of finish on that side. And I wasn't a really avid player as a lefty. And this is back, when you tore your ACL back then, it's very different than today. Today, it's like going through the drive-thru at Burger King.
Right.
You're in and out and you're back.
Everyone does it, yeah.
Like back when I had it done, it was a full year recovery from the surgery. It was a full year, crutches for 6 months. It was a big deal. And so my right knee never quite fully recovered, and it just felt weird. And I was never really into golf that much. I played with my buddies and could occasionally shoot in the upper 80s, but mostly, mid 90s, upper 90s, over 100. And then I switched over to right-handed and started to play right-handed after I had my surgery on my knee. And I would just kind of load everything on my left leg. And just hit pitch shots. And that's kind of how I played for a while.
Wow.
And just like little pitches and chips, not even on the golf course. And then when I started going out on the golf course, I played right-handed except for my short irons. My short irons, I still played lefty because I could just kind of arm swing them, and it was really comfortable. So I could arm swing them lefty. And so I'd go out and play, and sometimes I'd be with my buddies, and somebody would come in if we only had 3 or 2 people. And they would be like, "Wait a minute, were you playing righty? You just hit," and they would get really confused because, 9-iron and my wedges and my putter were left and all my other clubs were right. So I did that for a while and then switched everything to right-handed except the putter, which is still lefty, and that'll always stay lefty. I'll never
That's
play.
awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like I would have been better off staying as a lefty. Righty. So you're baseball, a baseball guy. Like I can take my putter, small face putter, and I can throw a golf ball up in the air, and I can baseball it out of the air, no problem. Like just crushing home runs. If you ask me to do that right-handed with my driver, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. I don't have the same coordination that way. Left-handed is I play baseball left-handed, shoot hockey left-handed, play tennis left-handed. So it's just much more coordinated for me. So that's kind of how I started, and I got really into it pretty quickly afterwards. All the rest of my contact sports were sort of done after that. So golf became a very intense passion there for a while. And I got down to low single digits relatively quickly, and then got down to about scratch. Never got to the plus side. 0.1 was the lowest I ever got my index. And I stayed there for, I don't know, probably 10 years or so. And then family and index went back up. My daughter was born, just didn't play that much. So, I'm sure you kind of, with how old your kids are, you understand. And then when she got older, I started to play again a little bit. And then a few years ago, I started to, really get back into it. So I think last year I probably played maybe 40 rounds last year. And I'll probably play about the same this year, maybe about 40 rounds, which is pretty good. And then hit a lot of golf balls indoors.
Nice.
So as much as I can, if I could play 100 rounds a year, I would. If I could play 300, I would.
Right.
So right now, 40 is going to have to suffice for now.
Yeah, it's funny. I recently just looked at my NCGA app. Like, I guess now you can't really post anything on anymore. It's just gone. But I looked at how many rounds I played last year before my daughter was born in October, and I played about 88 rounds with 6 tournaments. And I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't even realize that." And I was like, in the 6 tournaments that I played, man, those were fun. And I only had one that was super bad, and it was my local tournament for the course that's out front of my house. And that was just a bad 2 days. But my index right now is a +1.2, plus 1.2.
That's great. Yeah.
I like going back to what I said. I feel like certain courses, just based off of like the lies, sometimes it gets to me on my approach shots. But also too, I do have a tendency to try and be real cute with certain shots. I always want to just go right at the pin instead of just thinking like, hey, I just go middle of the green and then just pick my poison. So tend to be a little aggressive. But leading into that, question for you that I have is, what do you think is the biggest issue in getting information today about how to find proper stats? Because everybody, from an amateur standpoint, when you go and jump onto like a TrackMan, or you go and jump onto a Foresight, or even those new what is it, Sky Caddy things, or remote Garmin range those pocket Garmin range things. What are your thoughts on an amateur using something like that compared to
compared to
I was going to say compared to like the information that you gather from Arccos, for an example, where you're actually playing compared to just being a range rat?
Yeah, those are two very different things, and they both have an application. They're both extremely useful. I have a launch monitor here in my house. I have a Bushnell. You can probably see it back there. See it in the corner.
Oh yeah.
I have a Bushnell Launch Pro, which is essentially a Foresight GC3. It's the same exact unit. And it's extremely valuable. And I use it to understand ball flight. I use it to check my numbers. Like I work on things in my swing. The teacher that I've been with now for a little over a year, Jason Giesbrecht. So a little shout out to Jason. He has me and has had me working on swing changes without giving me any real information on position. And so he'll tell me to, stack all my weight on my left side and hit 50-yard pitch shots with the 60-degree wedge, trying to keep the launch under 30 degrees. And by doing that and repeating that over and over again, he's making changes that he wants me to make in my patterns and how I'm moving without telling me how I'm moving. And so that's really valuable. So I can, jump on the launch monitor and I can set that up and I can, try to keep launch under 30 degrees. You wouldn't be able to do that without that. It would be impossible to know that. And so I use the launch monitor for things like that. I use the launch monitor to start guessing things. Like as I'm trying to move around my angle of attack or my club path, I will guess what they are. Like I will guess what my path is. I will guess what my angle of attack is before I see the number. And it's a really, really good way to practice if you're trying to develop a feel. Mm-hmm. So if I'm trying to feel, like, let's say I'm trying to hit a cut and I want the path to be, 2 degrees out to in, and I swing and I say to myself, okay, that's 2.2 or that's 2.4, or that's 1.7. And then I look at the number after I make my guess and go, oh, okay, well, that was really 4. All right. Okay. That was what I felt. There's a 4. Mm-hmm. All right, let me do it again and let me try to get to a 2. Okay, that one, let me guess, that was a 1. Okay, well, that was really a 1.7. And so the more I did that, the better that I got at it. And I even do practice drills where I try to instantly close my eyes as soon as I make contact with the ball. It's hard, but I'm doing that so I can't see anything about the launch. Like I don't want to, if I'm trying to work on trajectory and look at launch angle, I don't want to be able to look and see where the ball went into the screen because I'm going to kind of be able to tell. So I try to close my eyes and time it up, and then I'll guess what launch angle was. And the more I worked at it, the better I got at it, and the more it helped to develop those feels. So understanding those kind of numbers as you're trying to work on things, I think can be really important. Now, I think it can also be really dangerous. I think people can go down rabbit holes of getting stuck in swing positions and being so focused on the numbers. And I think that's a bad thing. And so I would be doing these things with professional guidance from a teacher that and trust. I wouldn't be doing some of this stuff on your own. And then as far as Arccos, that's going to give you performance stats, how you're performing on the golf course while you are playing. Very different than practice stats, which is what you're going to get. And these practice stats are going to be maybe more informational. But, I also use, I set up combines in the software. I just use the Foresight software that comes with it. I don't have any of the other plugins, but I will do combines where I've created my own set of combines and I score the combines and I'm playing these practice games and it's measuring how I'm performing. And I'm able to get in some really good high quality practice, not being able to go outside, which here in the Northeast is really valuable.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Those are some interesting, those are some interesting takeaways. Those are things that quite honestly, I really don't spend that much time on monitors just because one, it's super hard to find one out here. You either have to go to your Golf Mart or I don't know, one of the private, coaching, a private coach out here to try and find it.
Sure.
I try and really just be real old school and look at where my divot's at on the grass, what's the direction of my club face going, video cameras and seeing where my club face is square at the point. But I don't have anything like that where I could just go and jump on a monitor and see. But when I have jumped on the monitor, I feel like sometimes the numbers are very, I feel like they can be a bit flaunted. Like when I go to Golf Mart, for an example, everything's a draw for me on a monitor compared to when I actually play. I normally play a small, 2-yard, 3-yard cut. And I'm like, where is this coming from? How come I can't do that on a golf course? And I look at my numbers and everything, and it is significantly different to where guys are like, oh, dude, you're spinning the ball at 2,700 RPMs. I'm like, that's not terrible with a cut. That's really not. That's not bad at all. And then, you know, they'll be like, oh, maybe you need a little bit stiffer shaft. I'm like, I don't think so. I already got plenty of club head speed. I don't think I need any more. I think
Sure.
you know, these things are
kind of juiced up like a radar gun kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure, Lou. If you've gone to an actual place with like a golf
like a
club champion, or Dick's Sporting Goods, compared to your home monitor, like Flight Scope or whatever, you might see a difference there compared to you being able to change the numbers and keep the numbers to where you are compared to, well, we need to sell something, so let's make it seem like there's a couple extra mile per hour swing speed with this driver that you normally might not get, just to help you want to purchase this club. But yeah, no, that's interesting. I know for me personally, Julio and I think it was back in December, we went to, what would you call it? Like it was an indoor.
Yeah, we went to this thing called Golf Labs. It was an indoor practice range, but they had trackmans where you could go in and play. You know, you could go play TPC Sawgrass. You could go play any course that you wanted. And when we went in there, it was pretty interesting to kind of see statistically like where you would hit the ball on the I guess on the screen with the type of shot you would put, and it would kind of do something different.
Yeah, like, it was tricky. Some of it would go hard hooks or hard like cuts, and you're just like, and I personally I can't hit off a turf. I've done it before, but I'm just so mentally messed up with that. I need to hit off of grass, especially for irons. Driver, not a big deal, but it's just something that I think has. Fortunately, in California, you know, we don't have to really worry about not playing on grass or playing year round as much as we can, but. Playing there, I think it was the first time I ever broke 100 since 8th grade. Yeah. Or not break 100, hit over 100. It was like horrible. I could, anything inside like 20 yards of a chip, I think I misread the TrackMan thinking that I had to hit the screen and not just that it would pick it up no matter where my chip was. And I would just shoot it over and then shoot it over on the other side. And then I was just so ticked throughout that process. But I mean, and that's also kind of hindered my wanting to actually have an indoor facility at my house. I know we have the room for it, but I'm like, do I want to put all that money into it if I really don't even like hitting irons? I mean, might be able to help me driver.
We got to end it. We're going to have to end this podcast now. I mean, I live in the Northeast, and I don't have any options. And you guys are like, it's just so nice here in California. And you know, I live in heaven for golf. I don't have that. So 6 months a year, like that's all I got. So I got to make do. If I didn't like to hit off of turf or hit inside, I'd have to shut it down half.
I'd be screwed. I mean, the fact that you get about like 40 or so rounds in 6 months is amazing. I mean, especially with Julio saying 88 until October. I think for me last year, I might have had like 10 to 12 rounds, you know, and I try to get out once a month. I usually go to the range once a week. Obviously with the time change, when the sun goes down earlier, it's almost impossible for me to get off of work and then go over to the range. But now that there's finally some more light coming out, I'm actually able to do that now. But yeah, I know when I was at Hofstra playing baseball over on the Northeast, like everything was indoors, and I was a pitcher. So like you pitched on the mound indoors, you know, you took ground balls indoors, sometimes, you know, BP in all the cages. And it was just, our first weekends that we would always play, I felt like we always had a disadvantage to wherever we went to because they were practicing outside, practicing for the last like 3 months, whether it was California, Florida, you know, the South. And you could literally see that, especially because one side has not been practicing like that. They've been practicing on turf that you're not playing on anymore compared to another team. But for like Princeton itself, like you said, you have a course on campus, which I know like Notre Dame, one of my supervisors, his son goes to Notre Dame. They have like 2 golf courses there. I'm sure you guys have like something similar with indoor facilities as well, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We have indoor facilities. Yeah, which is great.
Do you guys have anything? I think it was like URI. One of my buddies at Hofstra said that they have an indoor facility, but you hit outside, but they have like heaters that are like pointing toward them or some like next level thing that I'd never heard about for golf. But is it like TrackMan kind of a situation for the indoors until you guys go out to competitions and it heats up? Or how do you guys really prepare, you know, at Princeton?
Yeah, I mean, we get out as much as we can. I mean, we've been outside a few times this year already. It just really depends. It's very weather dependent. So if we get a day, mid 40s or above, not a lot of wind, we're going to try to get outside. And if it gets into the 50s, then we're definitely going to be outside as long as it's not crazy wind. And then we just hope for some warmer days. But yeah, we have those things. We have a really nice facility. It's not like some of the schools out there have incredible facilities. We have really nice facility. It's not like some of the ones you see on social media, but it's great. And we make do with what we have in the wintertime, which is all that we can do up here in the Northeast.
Yeah,
that's what I do here at home. I make do, and it's a great way to me. It's a great way to keep swinging the club when you otherwise can't.
Yep. Yeah, I have a friend who lives up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's a 2-star PGA instructor. He's the same as you. He's just got himself a new house and already extended like a piece of his garage, put a foresight in there, and he just goes to town. But they joined a country club. I think it's Egypt Valley Country Club out there. And he's like, dude, if it's like 40 degrees, me and my wife, we're going out there. Like, it doesn't matter. We're going. He's like, because the membership, it's like, it doesn't stop. He's like, we still got to go out there for our food and beverage, costs. We still got to go out there and like do like board meetings, all this stuff. He's like, so if it's 40 degrees, I tell my wife all the time, we'll take the heater in the golf cart, but like, we got to go play at least 9 holes. We got to do something. But when I went last visit him, it was literally just before, I think, just before October, 2 years ago. And he's like, you came at literally the perfect time. He's like, when you go home, we're about to be completely under snow. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah. And so we got out there, but it was literally the best. It was like 60 something degrees, little breeze, 36 holes. We killed it. It was a great track.
That's great.
Yeah. Great spot. But no, I mean, I get it. I think John and I tend to take it for granted how good sometimes we have it to go play golf. And then we just kind of like, when we've had nothing but rain, it's like, it's not that bad. I mean, if
it could be worse.
It could be worse. It's not that bad. You can get out there with your FootJoy rain gear and still be able to, stay dry. It's just don't wear your nice stuff.
I did live down south for a few years and had you could play all 12 months pretty comfortably, but a solid 10 and a half months was pretty solid. And then 2 months, month and a half was you could go either way. And I loved having a really long golf season. It was awesome. I really enjoyed kind of the 2 months off. I looked forward to, all right, cool. I don't have to golf this weekend because it's
nice.
I need a break where when you live in the Northeast, and it's nice out for 6 months, you're pretty much going to play if you're a golfer, because you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to shut it down.
Yeah, definitely. Now, just a quick question. So when you were playing a lot, did you compete at all?
I did play tournament golf, when I was before pre-marriage, pre-kid, and I was I would say I was decent as a local golfer, and I qualified for a couple of state amateurs that I got into when I lived in New York State, but I was never good. I was good enough to occasionally get into one of those things, but never good enough to be competitive. Never good enough to be competitive in them. The very first one that I got into was in 2001, and it was at a place called Seven Oaks, which is Colgate University's golf course. It's in New York State.
Upstate.
Yeah. And I showed up there, and it's is it a Robert Trent Jones design? I think it is. Tricked up. Keep in mind, this is 2001. I wasn't even playing a Pro V1 yet. I think I was playing a Titleist Professional. Like, it had just come out, and I hadn't switched yet. I was playing a Titleist Professional. Yeah, and I think that's what I was playing. So it was 7,000 yards. No, I think it's a Donald Ross course. 7,000 yards, tricked up, kind of humpback greens all over the place. and I went 80, 83. In the very first round, I played, the first 2 rounds, kid that I got paired up with, I forget, he was a high school kid, and he shot 5 under the first day. And back then he was 5 under with like 3 holes to go. And the record in the New York State Am at the time, I think, was 5 under. That's the lowest score anyone had ever shot in a round. Or maybe it was 6 under, and he was trying to tie it with another. But he ended up 5 under for the round, 67. Yeah. And it was just, watching him play and watching me play was 2 very different things. And like, I remember walking away from that going, I can't believe I just shot an 80 in this thing. Like, that's unbelievable. And now, like, I think about that and go, I was playing a 7,000 yard tricked up golf course in the State Am and shot an 80 and didn't really play all that great. Left a bunch of shots out there. I would kill for that right now, because I just don't have that in my game at the moment. Yeah. So it puts it in perspective anyway.
I got a similar story to that. It was the Santa Rosa City Championship. The final pairings, I got all the way through to the end, and I got paired up with this kid named Will Lohmeyer from Windsor, California. He was like the top kid at his high school. And he's going to San Diego State to go play golf next year. So he was a junior when this happened. I shot 76 the first round to his 64.
Yeah.
And just like you, I felt like I left a lot of shots out there, but also I felt like I was kind of grinding for a couple pars to try and come in with that score. But when he shot 64, and I didn't even realize, I wasn't really paying attention much, but I was just like, holy smokes. Like, where was I not paying attention? Like, what was going on? This was crazy. But yeah, literally on the front 9, I think he had 6 birdies. He had 6 birdies on the front 9, like in a row, which was unreal.
Yeah.
He almost made the one that got me was number 4 at Foxtail Golf Course. He got on in 2, and it was just a slippery downhill putt, and he just lipped it with a little bit too much speed for eagle, and then he just taps it in for bird. And he was pissed. And I just was like, all right, well, whatever. I'm not worried about it. I'm just trying to focus and just continue to play my game. But yeah, I've seen that, and now to like see him as like one of the top recruits, I guess, for out of this area. Yeah, to see him going to San Diego State, I'm like, all right, that kid can play. And San Diego State plays San Diego Country Club, which Scotty Scheffler not Scotty Scheffler.
Is it Xander?
Yeah, Xander Schauffele and I think Ricky Fowler are members out there too. And that is a tough track. I had the luxury when I was working for Callaway to get out there and go play. And that is a tough track. Like club. That club demands some respect for sure. That's not your average, like, hey, I got 100K, sitting around, love to join a country club just to have some fun. Like, no, that course would piss you off if you're not very good at golf.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I wish I had a cool story like that. Still haven't played in a tournament yet, but I mean, I know one of Lou's tweets that he had over the last week or two was about like an 18 handicap to a scratch golfer. How many birdies the scratch golfer averages more to like the 18. And I think I told Julio this, and it's like the scratch golfer only averages like a birdie, 1.8 more birdies than a scratch or an 18 handicapper. And some of those stats that you bring up on like some of your tweets, I know I was suggested your feed on Twitter. It just started like populating, and it was just one of those things that really just was like, wow, you would think that you would have at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 more birdies, but a lot of that might just come down to blow up holes, or leaving strokes around the green that, they're not good at chipping, or not, like Julio said, fighting for pars, grinding for pars, or playing a hole knowing that, hey, I'm just going to shoot for par here and just be happy with it, instead of, like even Julio said again, trying to just aim for the pin every single time. I mean, that's kind of what drew me to your page, with just these little stats that you might not think are true, kind of like true or false, like kind of things. And with that, is that if you don't mind me asking, is that kind of how did Arccos like approach you once you created your blog? Is that how like the whole thing kind of like became with you working with them, or did you have your foot in the door somewhere else in the golf industry?
I mean, I did a number of different things in golf and started to work with a few different players and got exposed to a few different things, and then ended up just meeting a few different people and, had some conversations. And, I still have a day job in corporate America. So I work for a large company, and everything that I do golf is, believe it or not, part-time. I run an analytics team for a large company based out of Philadelphia, and golf is just what I do in my spare time. Some people like to watch Netflix at night. I like to do golf stats.
Yeah.
And so when I'm not working my day job, I'm doing some other things in golf. Will it ever become full time? I don't know. Maybe we'll see. But it's awesome. I get to do some really cool things. I've gone some really cool places and get to have some really cool conversations. So it's sometimes I need to pinch myself, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been really cool.
That's awesome. Well, Lou, it's been, I know we're getting close here on time, but it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I mean, hearing your insights, kind of like, the training our mindsets to kind of look at certain things in different ways. I think that is so valuable. And I think that would be valuable to, everyone that listens and tunes into this episode. Like it's kind of something that's not really spoken a lot of, I think, within the golf industry is, how valuable some of these numbers can be. I think to some people, it just tends to be a little overwhelming, or it tends to be like you're being picked on, like, oh, I suck. Like these numbers just confirm that I suck, right? The misery in this game definitely demands company sometimes. And so, we have a friend, Train. I think he follows you as well.
Yeah. Yep. I was on their podcast. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So he's a good friend of ours. And, his mental coaching within the game of golf is, it's a thing of beauty. And I think you've reiterated it as well, which is like, hey, it's not like it's to put you down. It's literally just statistics to help continuing to grow, just like how every day for us is, right? Every day is a mystery, and you got to have a plan for what you want to do. So, take it into the things that you love most. And I think people really have a high passion for golf, and, why not go out there and get your money's worth and make sure that you're having fun.
Right.
Yeah. I love it. So, I would encourage you to start tracking your stats, especially as a plus 1.2.
I already bought an Arccos. It's on the way. It'll be here Wednesday.
You could definitely optimize. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd be happy to help you and guide you. So
I'll get it Wednesday. I'll get it Wednesday. Play my skins game on Thursday, and I'll have something to report there.
Nice. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I literally was just like, all right, bye.
Well, you don't mess around. He's man of quick decisions.
You know what? Okay. So I'll tell you this one. So Arccos came out pretty aggressively when I was working in like retail for golf. I worked for, what were they called back then? Golfsmith, before they became Golf Galaxy. So I was one of the top producers. I actually, as a lot of people don't know, but I actually have like my name in the Callaway banner for selling the most product within a year. And I remember when they came in, like somebody came into the store saying like, hey, would you be willing to like try this and let me know what your feedback is? They left it with the store for about a week. Guy came back and said, hey, did you guys try it? What were your thoughts? And I was like, I don't understand what it was for. And then he eventually broke it down, but then all of a sudden they were like, you guys partnered with Cobra. It was inside of, everyone started wanting them, and you saw commercials all over the place. So I've always been curious about it. I just had never used one up until really now. So yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to lie. I saw a few of my friends who had it on there, and I was just like, thing looks stupid on the end of your club, but now kind of actually hearing it, directly from the source and the benefits of it. Yeah. I'm at a point now where I'm like, hey, I really want to dial it in, because I got a couple tournaments coming up that, hey, if I can get some more insight, and especially since I'm being a little bit more serious about my golf game, it is a little bit more, beneficial compared to where I was before, where it was like, all right, dude, got us an 18 pack to last us for 18 holes. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
So I definitely, shoot me a couple of notes, and I'll be happy to give you some pointers and tips on things you can do, as well as how you can interpret, to make sure you're looking at the right things. And I'll make sure to guide you through you starting to use them. And you'll see a lot of valuable info start to come through that you're going to be able to then translate to what you work on, how you practice, and then
definitely
allow you to get better.
I'm excited.
I'd love to see you get to a +3 or +4. That'd be cool.
I would love that too. I would love that too. I'd have just a lot of friends being like, no way, dude. No, they're fixed. You gotta give me more strokes, man.
That's the only problem.
Julio, if you're not, I signed up with Lou's Lou Stagner Golf newsletter, and really interesting stuff on there as well. Highly recommend it. Free newsletter. I think it's weekly, right? Is it a weekly newsletter that you put out?
It's weekly. It's mostly weekly.
Okay.
So
That's the goal.
I'm only a couple months into it, and I think I've missed a couple of weeks. But
Gotcha.
It's during the middle of Princeton golf season. It's kind of tough to get through everything. But I will be. I think I'm on track right now and got through what I needed to get through. So it'll be pretty much a weekly newsletter, and I put out all sorts of cool stuff that you probably won't see anywhere else.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Not that I saw. At least I think I've only had one so far, and it was like the 6th, and it definitely had some really interesting stuff on there, breakdown of stats and everything. It just really dives in, and again, being baseball guys, that way, I grew up playing baseball. I think I played golf in 8th grade summer, and then worried that it'd mess up my swing, and I became a pitcher anyway, so it's not like it would have hurt me. But it's just really, really interesting stuff that, like you said, you're probably not going to see really anywhere else. But if you love golf and you're interested in it, I highly would recommend it because it's just a great read. And even if it's not weekly, even if it's bi-weekly, especially, if you're at not just at Princeton, but you got a full-time job, you got a family, you have your part-time jobs as well on the side. It's definitely something that I recommend everybody who is interested in, wanting to dive deeper into golf and stats and stuff like that to check out. Mainly, because it's free too. So, I thought it was really, really, really cool.
I appreciate the shout out. Thanks very much.
I just followed it. And what we'll do too is we'll tag your Twitter, we'll tag your podcast at the end of this for when we post it on YouTube for more people to go kind of hopefully go and subscribe and follow what you're doing.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Again, thank you, Lou, for joining us again. We really appreciate it. Especially we're able to set this up and figure it out being on the East Coast and West Coast. Honestly, wasn't expecting it for us to find a date this soon. Glad we did, but it was a pleasure having you on, and hopefully we can get you on another time later on once you guys have a successful season at Princeton, everything starts cooling down. But again, thank you so much for joining us, giving us a lot of more insight, and we're gonna sign off for now. And thank everyone for tuning in on Fore Dad's podcast today, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.